Hey house guests, welcome to today's Big Brother 22 updates and spoilers. Our house guest of the day is Catherine B. Catherine, happy birthday. We hope you're having a wonderful day and celebrating with your family and friends safely. And we just want to thank you so much for your support because we could not do this without you. And we really do appreciate it. So thank you, and seriously, enjoy your birthday because you are amazing. And if you guys want to be the house guest of the day, like the birthday girl, check out our Patreon link in the info box below. All right, so before we get started, I just want to address a few things. So number one, you'll probably notice that this video is up a little bit earlier than usual. So if you're new here, I just wanted to let you know, usually on Sundays, we do try to post the spoiler a little earlier because that's my day with my grandma, so gotta get this out there for everybody. Number two, a lot of you have been asking in the comments what's going on with Big Brother After Dark. Where is it? I wish I had a solid answer for you, but it seems like it's not happening this season. I don't know if that's just because of the pandemic or what. Maybe they just can't get the crew together for that, or because it's not starting at the same time that it usually is. I don't know, but it seems like they're not doing it, which is a bummer. Also, a lot of you have been saying how much you miss the chair. Me too. I really do miss it, but this is what we have now. I gotta actively sit instead of just relaxing. So it is what it is, but I'm sorry that you feel like there's a hole now in your life without the chair. I know I do. And one final thing before we really get going here. When we left off yesterday, I told you guys they had the Power Veto player draw, and I said that Kaiser was one of the players. He was not. We filmed the spoiler right after the feeds came back from the Power Veto draw, and obviously did not wait long enough to find out that Kaiser was not playing. It was Tyler in his place. So Day was hosting, and the players were Cody, Keisha, Kevin, Enzo, Ian, and Tyler. I apologize for the mistake. It will not happen again. And it turns out, yes, Kevin did get house guest choice, and he chose Enzo to play, which is interesting. We'll get there. But anyway, I want to rewind just a little bit before the player draw. There was a conversation between Cody and Enzo up in the HOH room, and Cody was talking about how he feels better about Janelle after talking to her because he thinks that basically it's Kaiser's fault that she decided to play in the safety suite competition. It's not that she doesn't trust Cody and she thought that he was going to put her up. It's because Kaiser decided to play, so then she panicked and also decided to play. Yeah, you can tell Cody is not a huge Kaiser fan at this point. So he also liked that Janelle said that she's going after weak players, because a lot of people, when they talked to him, didn't want to be direct with him and say what their goals were. And she also told Cody that he's safe if she wins HOH. And I believe that's actually true, which again, we'll get there. So Cody says he doesn't want to be on her bad side, and Enzo, I guess, likes Janelle. I'm not really sure. It's hard to tell where Enzo really stands with people because he can be really he's cool with everybody, but I don't know what he's really thinking until we see some DRs from him. But anyway, they talk about all the alliances that they're working on building. You know, they got something going with Nicole F. and Danny. They're trying to get something together with Davon and Bailey. They're cool with the guys. So they decide, just baseline, the two of them working together, they're going to call themselves the Roots, because you got the Roots, and then they have all these other alliances, building off of that. Cool. So I guess that's our first, oh wait, it's not our first named alliance, because we also have the Million Club with Nicole F. and Ian. But it's one of the first of the season. So then they were talking about, of course, how they don't trust Kaiser. It's just, things really popped off the other day when Kaiser decided to play in the safety suite competition. But honestly, it was a good move from him, because he was going to go up on the block and he was going to be a target. So he did the right thing there. But they also talked about this week's eviction. Cody doesn't really have a preference between Keisha or Kevin leaving. Initially, Keisha was more like his target, but he feels like he smoothed things over really well with both of them, so he's comfortable with like either one of them staying. And then they were talking about their relationship with Danny, and they both really, really like her. They feel like she is solid. They both trust her completely. But Cody thinks, even though she's 100% with them, he thinks that she might be tight with Janelle on the side and just like hiding it from them. I don't think she's that tight with Janelle. Maybe they're friends in real life, but in this game so far, we are not seeing it. So then the feeds went down for the Power Veto player picks. And again, it's Cody, Keisha, Kevin, Enzo, Ian, and Tyler. Not Kaiser. Okay, so after that, Cody, Enzo, and Bailey were up on the Sky Bridge. And Enzo says to Bailey, I love you. I love Cody. I love Day. Let's keep it us to the end. He said, I don't care what you guys have going on the side. That's fine. You know, you do what you got to do. But when it comes to us, deflect, protect us, we'll protect you. And Bailey says, yeah, I like that. That sounds great. I gotta say, Bailey is really positioning herself well so far. She's got a lot of people really digging her. And I don't really hear anyone mentioning her as a target. The only thing I can think of in like a negative light would be whenever Danny reminds somebody, don't forget that Bailey is close to Janelle, so you gotta be careful with what information you give her. But I don't hear her coming up as a target. So anyway, Enzo was talking about how he's really shocked that Kevin picked him to play in the Power Veto competition because he's not planning on using it if he wins it. So like, where did this come from? He's not even like particularly close to Kevin. So it's an interesting choice from Kevin. I'm not really sure where his head was with that because we've seen that Kevin is pretty close to Day and Unicole, but I don't think he'd want to pick either of them at this point because it would kind of expose what's going on. So I'm guessing maybe Kevin just wanted to pick somebody that he's not working with. I mean, also, I don't think Enzo has the best track record for competitions. I don't think he's won that many, right? Maybe like one in his original season. So maybe that was part of it. And Kevin just wanted to give himself a better chance of winning. But Cody says, I really like what we got going here with the 4, but he wants to grow their alliance a little bit more. Not yet. You know, you don't want to make anything too big too soon. Bomb Squad. So they all like Memphis. They can't really figure out if he's with that old school group. Doesn't seem like it. But Cody shares that Memphis told him he would not use the Power Veto if he were to win it. So he feels pretty good about that. Now, obviously, now we know Memphis is not playing anyway. So that's not even an option. But the fact that he said that before makes Cody feel pretty confident that he will work with them. Okay, so speaking of Memphis, he was talking to Keisha in the kitchen, and Keisha's getting really worried that if nominations stay the same, people are not going to be willing to go against the tide. She's assuming that she's the target this week, and she doesn't think that people are going to want to go against what Cody wants and vote for her to stay. So Memphis says Cody is not telling anyone to vote a certain way. And Keisha says, yeah, not yet, but he will. You know, it's still very early in the Big Brother week. So Memphis says there's no reason for Cody to pick a side at this point. He's probably just going to stay neutral and let the house decide. So Keisha, she feels like she's the target because people are going to want to split up. They think that Keisha and Memphis are potentially a duo, and they're going to want to get rid of her to try and break that up right away. So Memphis is saying, no, like, Kevin is not a pawn. You are not the target. If you think that Kevin is a pawn, that's just Kaiser saying that. So, like, don't listen to him. But you know what? Like, at the beginning of the week, Keisha was, or the beginning of after the safety comp, Keisha was kind of the target. But now, again, it seems like Cody doesn't really care who goes. So, meanwhile, we've got Kevin and Ian chatting over chess, the crazy 3D chessboard. And just to give you guys a little bit of context, these two have definitely been getting closer. They've been bonding over being like outsiders. They did kick around the idea earlier of making an alliance with the two of them and Unicole. I think Kevin came up with the name like awkward dorkables or something like that. But they haven't really solidified anything with that yet. But I just want you guys to know, like, they are getting closer. So Kevin says, I don't want to put you in a bad situation, but if you were to win the veto and use it on me, I would pay you back. And he basically says, like, I will play in the safety suite competition in the next 2 weeks, like whichever one you want. And if I win, you would be my +1. So you would be safe for the week. So Ian says, that's cool. But we got to keep in mind that we don't know who the replacement nominee would be. We don't know who Cody would put up. And Kevin agrees, like, yeah, I don't know who he would put up. That's not really a surprise because Kevin has been coming up with some crazy theories about what's going on. But anyway, Cody was actually considering putting up Unicole if necessary, like if it comes to that and he needs a replacement nominee. So I don't think Kevin and Ian would be too happy about that, considering they like her. But then again, Kevin, I'm sure, would just be happy to get off the block, right? You got to think of yourself first. So a little later, Ian and Kaiser were chatting in the key bedroom. Side note, I'm obsessed with Ian's dinosaur puppet. Whenever he has that puppet, I'm just like living for it. I love it so much. So Ian was saying, you know, he feels pretty good about being picked to play in the veto. It's always better to play, have some sort of control over what's going on, control like over your own destiny. So he also tells Kaiser he's been having a really hard time socializing in the past like 15 hours or so. And it doesn't help that he is feeling like absolute trash from this slop. Apparently, they have a new type of slop this year, and it's like really messing people up. I believe Ian just like can't even digest it, so he's like vomiting this slop up. That's so sad. So Kaiser is telling Ian, whenever you're feeling like you can't talk to other people, like, you can come to me, you can always be yourself with me, I know what you're going through, and I'll genuinely look out for you. Because they have that bond, both being on the autism spectrum. And oh my god, whenever I see these two talking, it's just like instant tears. You could just tell, like, the love is there between these two. They really understand each other, and oh my god. But Ian thanks him, and he's like, yeah, I'm a sucker for working with old school players, so I'm gonna look out for you too. And Kaiser reiterates, this is not just like on a game level. If you ever need to talk to someone, just like on a personal level, just come to me and we'll shoot the shit. Ah! I love them. Okay, so let's talk about David. What's going on with David? I feel like we haven't really talked about him at all. So he had a really long chat with Davon in the bathroom area yesterday, and just a little context here, just a little reminder, Day and Bailey were talking the other day about how they want to pull him in more because he was kind of being like distant and they want to work with him, so they're trying to feel him out and see if it's possible. So first they were just talking about like work and David's experience last season, like how much it freaking sucked. He had to tiptoe around certain people in the house, and Jack and Jackson set up their like hierarchy, which really just sucked. And Day was asking him, what were you thinking like when you left the house? And he says he felt really bad for Kemi and seeing like what she had to go through. So then when they start talking about this, Big Brother blocks the feeds. Why? Like, let us hear this. Oh my god. So we all saw it. We know what happened. So then Day was like, okay, I don't follow you on social media yet, but I've seen like screenshots and I'm wondering what's going on with Jack and Jackson, because apparently he's been like hanging out with them since the show ended. She's like, are you friends with them now? And David says no. So then right after that, the feeds change for a few minutes. So luckily they were still talking about this when the feeds came back, but David was explaining how Jack and Jackson would like send him invites to hang out or like work out together, and David didn't like really want to accept them, but he did because he felt like if he didn't, he would just still like have that anger inside of him. So he felt like this would help him move on from that. So then Day was asking him about these hangouts and like, would they just like immediately want to take pictures with you and like post them and like do lives with you so that it would be like, hey, look, we're hanging out with this black guy. He's our friend. Like, we're not racist. And she was asking, does it feel like they were using you? Like posting all this stuff on social media whenever you would hang out. And David says, yes. You know, after I heard how they were acting when the Black Lives Matter movement started popping up again, he felt like that. And I feel so bad that this happened to David. But anyway, and to everyone who's been in situations like this, which it's a lot of people. But I just have to say, like, before we get into the game part of this conversation, Davon especially has been leading some amazing conversations on the feeds about, like, the Black Lives Matter movement and about her situation, like, after her seasons were over. And it's just been incredible to listen to. Like, she has such a great perspective. But anyway, they start talking some game, and they agree that they don't want Kevin to go this week. They both really like... Oh, wait, sorry. I just jumped ahead. They don't want Kevin to go this week. It's not that they don't like Keisha, but I guess they just feel more of a bond with Kevin. They also really both like Nicole. They feel like she's a straight shooter. And of course, like, she was on David's season last year, even though he wasn't around that long. But yeah, David says he feels comfortable with Day, Nicole, and Bailey. So are they going to form something? They didn't set up anything official yet, but I'm interested to see what happens there. So then David and Ian were having a game chat in the bathroom area. David is just like rocking and rolling now. Ian says, if I win the power veto, I'm not going to use it because I don't want to make waves this early, and I want to respect the HOH and his nominations. So then Ian tells David, I want to work with you. We should look out for each other. So David agrees, and he's asking Ian about his season, and, like, he was like, I didn't see your season, so I don't know, like, what kind of game you played, but obviously you won, so it had to be pretty good. And it's interesting because David, when he was talking to Davon earlier, he was saying that this was part of his strategy to talk to some of these, like, players from the earlier seasons and, like, ask them about their games, because he knows, like, people love talking about themselves. So get them talking about their games, get them talking about their accomplishments, and that could be really good for him. So I'm curious if that's what he was doing here. But Ian's telling David, I like your vibe. I like playing chess with you. I think David might have beaten Ian, so he's, like, seeing David as this, like, strong, like, not, I mean, like, a chess opponent, but, like, somebody he can work with in the game. You know what I mean? A worthy... not adversary, a worthy ally, you know, they're on the same level. So yeah, he tells David, I'm happy you're here. So David's like, yeah, it's awesome. Like, I didn't know if I was going to get to come back because I was the first one out on my season, but he is very excited to be there. And he really wants to win an HOH competition, not necessarily to, like, take somebody out, but just, like, to accomplish something in this game. So then David asks Ian, like, about the veto and who picks the renom if the veto is used. And I'm hoping he's just, like, playing dumb, because I know he was definitely asking Cody about that too. And I think he's just trying to be like, oh, I don't know anything about the game. But, yeah, I also want to mention too, Cody really needs to learn David's name, because he has called David Kevin multiple times to his face. And I think this morning was the first time that David was like, it's David. So I'm glad that that happened. But there's been a lot of, like, incorrect names here. Like, Keisha and Memphis have both called Tyler Taylor. I'm pretty sure Kaiser referred to Keisha as Sheila at one point. Like, what is going on here? But anyway, Enzo and Kevin had a quick chat in the storage room before the veto competition. And the first part of this was cut off, but I'm assuming Kevin was asking, like, what are you going to do if you win? Because Enzo said, I'm going to go for this veto. I'm not just going to, like, throw this. And he says, if I win, you know, you can go to Cody and see if he wants to do anything with it, and we'll take it from there. So then after Enzo left the room, Kevin said, so that's a no. Yeah, okay, so then the feeds go down for about 2.5 hours for the Power Veto competition, and just a reminder, the host was Davon. The players were Kevin. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, the players were Kevin, Keisha, Cody, Enzo, Ian, and Tyler. So it turns out it was that competition where you gotta like stack stuff. This time it was fruit and veggies. I don't know if they were real or just, I'm assuming they were like fake ones. But yeah, you have to keep resetting your timer because if your timer runs out, the whole stack is gonna fall and you gotta start over. So it sounds like Cody freaking sucked during this competition. That should be a lot of fun to watch. But Enzo was the big winner. He won the power of veto. So Enzo and Tyler had a quick chat in the photo bedroom and they agree, yeah, Enzo should probably just keep the nominations the same unless Cody decides that he wants to make a move here. So they also talked about how they're excited to finally get the backyard tomorrow. They haven't had it since they moved in, so they're like itching to get outside. So then a little later, Enzo checks in with Cody and Enzo's like, I'll do whatever you want. Whatever you want. And Cody says, let's just keep them the same. So then Enzo is like, I was thinking, do we get rid of Tyler right now? So they were both laughing. I'm guessing it was a joke. Like Cody just laughed it off, but Enzo, I feel like might have been half serious about it and like floating the idea out there. Enzo seems very nervous about Tyler. He knows Tyler is sneaky and he's going to be a good competitor. So it was like a half joke, half serious, in my opinion. All right. So then later, Janelle and Kaiser had a check-in in the key bedroom. And I just have to say, like, this was a pretty lengthy conversation and Janelle was not in her costume. Like, she has her regular star costume and then she has like her sleeping one, like the little unitard thing. She was not in either of those at this point, and the reason that I'm mentioning this, I know a lot of us love Janelle, but I can only think that if it was like Nicole F or something who was in the costume and she wasn't following all the rules, everybody would be freaking out. So I hope Janelle is gonna freaking just wear the damn costume so it's not an issue. But anyway, let's go over some highlights from this conversation between Janelle and Kaiser. Kaiser realizes he was being way too intense before. He was doing way too much about trying to save Keisha. So he's gonna lay low now. He's like, it's only day 4. I need to get it together here because I am playing too hard. This is the same thing that he did on season 6 and season 7. So he realized after talking to Memphis, wow, Memphis is fine with Keisha potentially leaving. They're not like a super tight duo like him and Janelle. So he's asking himself, if Memphis doesn't really care if Keisha leaves, why should I care? You know, I should not be risking my game to save Keisha. So Kaiser also says Keisha seems to think that she and Memphis are a lot closer than they actually are. I mean, yeah, if you ask Keisha about it and then you ask Memphis about it, they're not going to have the same answer. So Janelle agrees, like, yeah, we need to go with the flow right now. We need to just, like, fade into the walls if possible. But also, like, wear your star costume. So they don't want Keisha to go, but they can't just, like, go crazy right now and go against the house and try and keep her. Not in the first week. They can't do that. So then Kaiser was telling Janelle about his conversation with Nicole F. And I guess Nicole was saying that she feels like Janelle doesn't like her. And Janelle says Nicole is obviously very insecure and she feels like part of the reason Nicole feels that way is because Janelle is friends with Rachel Riley in the real world. And Nicole and Rachel have some like really crazy beef. I guess it's from The Amazing Race, but it sounded like Rachel tried to sue Nicole at one point. I don't know if it was like a defamation of character thing or what, but like there's some crazy shit going on there. So yeah. Then Kaiser is saying he's gonna put in the work to keep reassuring Nicole F because she needs it. All right. So then they talk about potential targets. This is where things get a little crazy. So Janelle says she's thinking that they should take out David. if they get HOH. They think that he's still working with Tyler and Cody, which was like never actually a thing, but everybody's been assuming it. So they feel like, okay, David's really smart. If you look at last season, nobody was giving him any game information, and he still figured out like who was working with who, what was going on. Also, they haven't seen him play yet. He was the first one out of his season, so they don't know what his game style is going to be. Also, he has said that he feels like he has something to prove this season, and that could mean him making big moves and going after big players. So that's something that big players, Janelle and Kaiser, are going to be worried about. So then Janelle was also saying, if we get rid of David, we can try and work with Tyler and Cody. I mean, they might be able to get something going with Tyler and Cody, but it's not going to be because they got rid of David, because that is not a thing. So Kaiser says he's open to it unless Cody pisses him off. There's a storm brewing there, you guys. And Kaiser is like, I'm not really sure if David is a threat to win competitions, and Janelle says he can. We'll see. I don't know. Don't go after David. What? So later, Kevin and Cody were chatting up in the HOH room, and Kevin is trying to see if there's like some sort of scenario where he could come off the block. Like, could somebody else go up? Like, what's going on here? And he tells Cody, like, if you could make this happen for me, I will, again, it was the same offer he made to Ian, I will play in the safety suite in the next 2 weeks whenever you want, and it's going to double your chances for safety because I will make you my +1 if I win. So he also says, I don't know if you're working with Enzo, but maybe if he uses the power of Veto, it'll look like you guys are not working together, and, you know, because he would be messing up your nominations by doing that, so maybe that could be a good cover for you if you're working with him. So, I don't know if Kevin realizes that Cody and Enzo are super tight. I'm assuming no, because he's not having great reads so far. But anyway, Cody says the problem is if Enzo uses the veto, then the replacement nominee might feel like they're my target, and maybe this was like some sort of backdoor situation, and he's not going after anyone super hard right now, so he doesn't want to have to nominate a third person. That's just going to make another potential enemy for him. So then Kevin's like, okay, well, do you see us working together maybe in the future? And Cody says, 100%. He tells Kevin, I want you to stay this week, and I will tell people that I'm more comfortable with you staying like after the veto ceremony's over. So Kevin is really pushing for them to have a down-low-mance. Cody really got a kick out of that term, so we'll see. I'm sure even if they're not like fully working together, Cody is going to be like, yes, let's do it, because he wants to make sure he's going to be safe with Kevin if Kevin wins HOH. All right. So then after that conversation, Cody was talking to the cameras, and he said, it's so much harder to play this game without Derek here. Well, duh. I'm not saying Cody's like a bad player, but he's definitely more of like the comp beast type. And we know, like, Derek was the one doing all the thinking and pulling all the strings. So Cody says it's especially difficult being HOH the first week and trying to, like, figure out what everybody's doing. He also mentioned how things are weird with Nicole F. You would think the two of them were going to be super close because they were on the same season together and they're, like, trying to make it work. But he's really weirded out by how paranoid Nicole F is to talk to him alone, because she's worried that somebody's going to walk in and they're going to be like, oh my God, these two are working together. But it's preventing them from actually like having these game discussions, and it's weirding Cody out. So Cody feels like Danny is the only person he can really talk to. Interesting. He's also wondering if there's like some sort of guys alliance forming without him, which isn't the case, we know, but I'm guessing, like, getting all that feedback from Danny that people are worried about a guys alliance, he's kind of like, is there one that I'm not a part of? Like, what's going on here? So that's interesting. And he also said that he's planning on playing in the safety suite competition next week since he can't play for the HOH. He wants to have another chance to secure his safety. So yeah, he's pretty worried that, like, what if Kaiser wins HOH? He feels like Kaiser might put him up. And the crazy thing is, that's not necessarily the case, because we heard that Kaiser and Janelle are actually thinking about working with Tyler and Cody. So Cody could be in a lot better shape than he thinks. But anyway, today the house guests are probably going to be getting the backyard, so I'm sure they're going to be spending a lot of time out there, just like chilling, relaxing. A lot of times Sundays are a little bit calmer. We'll see what happens. I mean, Kevin and Keisha, they're probably going to at least try to get Enzo to use the power veto, right? It's a long shot, but you can't just not try. Also, Big Brother gave them some board games last night, like backgammon and like some other stuff. So they're probably going to be playing those, you know. Yeah, so the power veto ceremony should be tomorrow. And I think it's pretty safe to say that Enzo will not be using it, but you never know what could happen. And don't forget, tonight there is an episode. Sunday night, what? So make sure you check out our recap for that. Should be a lot of fun. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. And until next time, much love.